Hey guys, welcome back to the Life Community YouTube channel for the teens. My name is Brad. I am the youth intern here at Life Community. And one of the things that Pastor Marissa and myself thought would be a really cool way to get connected, not only with our teens, but with our community, is to do this, I want to say sermon series, but some sort of series about getting connected and hearing other stories as they come to faith. One of the biggest things is, sometimes when we're trying to learn about God or trying to figure things out, we get intimidated because we don't want to feel like we're the weird ones, or, especially in this generation, in this age where it's almost, I wouldn't say wrong, but it's very few that we see teens and young adults that actually come to the faith and, actually want to learn more about God. And, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter your background, if you've been good or bad your whole life, if you've been a church follower for 10 years, or if you've been coming for 2 weeks, Jesus will meet you where you are, and Jesus loves you no matter what. And that's one of the biggest things that I think we're hoping that we can get out of this little series is, hearing where God has worked in each of our lives. And I think that's just something really important. So to kind of talk about myself a little bit, like I said, my name is Brad. I grew up all over the country and didn't really call myself a Christian or really go to church or anything like that. If somebody asked what my religion was, I'd be like, oh, I believe in God. It was always, whatever. I never read the Bible. I never did anything like that. And I wouldn't say I felt like I was missing something at the time, but I'd go to summer camp every once in a while to meet with friends and youth groups every once in a while, and it was a lot of fun, but I never really saw it to be something that was for me, I guess you could say. And so I moved to Phoenix in about 2009, I want to say. And my first experience getting back into the church, I made friends with a couple people there, and they went to like this Saturday youth group, and I had a couple really good connections there. I went a couple times, but still kind of dropped off a little bit. And my mom ended up getting really sick with something called Chiari malformation. Essentially, her brain sinks back into the back of her head because her skull's too small. So it required many brain surgeries and things of that nature. And I just, being 15 and seeing your mom go through all of this pain and struggle and constantly going to the doctors and trying to figure out what's going on and nothing's helping, I just kept getting frustrated and upset. And I get upset at her, with no fault of her own. I'd get upset with doctors trying to figure out why they couldn't help my mom. And unfortunately, I really got upset with God. I blamed him. I was like, how can a God like yourself allow things like this to happen? And I was so angry and bitter, and I didn't want anything to do with religion. The only thing I could think of is there was no God. And, thinking back, that hurts me a little bit, but I also think back and realize this is a step I needed to find him again. I went through a phase of, checking out different religions. I went to different churches just trying to find answers, because it did come a time where I was like, well, what next? What is going on? And unfortunately in high school, I made friends with some great people, but also made some of the wrong friends. And my senior year of high school, I ended up getting kicked out because they found a pot brownie in my backpack. No fault of my own, unfortunately. And this was one of the biggest turning points, unfortunately, in my life, because not only was I a senior, I was getting ready to graduate high school, and I'm getting kicked out. And so I got a 10-day suspension. They decided to suspend me for the rest of the year. So I just, dropped out, got my GED, and went on with life, and decided, enough was enough. My plan was to always come up to Washington and move up here eventually. So I decided, it's time. I'm going to move up here and start a new life. So I started a new life, got a decent job. My step-parents, who are up here, invited me to church, and I was like, I really don't want to get up at 6 a.m. to go to church. I'm not a morning guy, but I was reluctant enough. I decided to come to church a couple times, and one of the things that I was huge into in high school was theater, So, I ran sound, I performed, I built sets. It didn't matter. I did it all because I just love the arts. And they needed a sound guy, so I was like, you know what? I'll help out. That was my foot in the door. And I am so grateful for saying yes to that. So I ran sound for a while, and everything was going good. I thought life was going good. I still didn't really believe most of the stuff that the pastor was saying, but, I just kind of went along with it, and, and I can remember I was at work one day and I got a letter and got home and read it, and it said, hey, you have your choice. You can go to jail for 3 years or you can do a drug program, because they decided to file a claim even though it wasn't my fault that I had a brownie in my backpack. Somebody put it in there. That's a story for another day, but the bottom line is it was in my backpack and they were charging me. So I had a choice now. I had to go to jail or pay a bunch of fines and do a program, and that was one of the lowest parts of my life. I was upset mostly at myself for allowing something like this to happen, but I thought I got away from that in high school, and it was all coming back, and I was like, okay, well, I'll get through this. And I remember, unfortunately I wish I remember exactly what sermons they were, but I remember there were a couple sermons during this time. And one specifically that talked about foster care, because I have foster siblings who we've adopted now. But one of them was about a foster family having this beautiful child, and unfortunately the mom was able to get him back. And so it hurt the family, but it was also great because it's the child just it needs to be with his biological family. And that's great. And I just remember, I had a little brother, the exact same thing was happening. Of course, we actually have him now, which is amazing. But I just remember having these feelings. And, it was after that one, I can remember going back to my pastor and I was like, hey, I've been listening to these sermons more often. And I keep hearing these things that are helping me through life and things I'm going through at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I honestly think this is God waving his hands at me and saying, hey, here I am. And I can remember this, and so I went back to his office, and we prayed about it, and I got saved again, and a couple weeks later I got baptized for the first time here at Life Community, and I started this path of learning who Christ was, and learning all of these things. So a couple years in, or about a year after getting baptized, I went to a family camp here at Life Community, and one of the older pastors, Pastor Trevor, decided that I did really well with the kids during this, so he wanted me to teach downstairs. So I started teaching in kids' life, and then eventually through Rooted and different things that we've done in the church, I decided that this is kind of where I want to be. So I started working with teens instead, and moving on to this path of becoming some sort of youth minister or youth pastor. I absolutely love working with the teens that we have here, and being able to pour into their lives as much as they're actually pouring into mine, and have this ability to show them what I am finally learning, that God is good and that God will provide. And I think about it, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, okay, I see why God did this. I see why I had to go through this drug program. I see why, I had to be suspended, because if I wasn't suspended, I wouldn't be up here. If I wasn't up here, I wouldn't have gone through that drug program. Had I not gone through that drug program, I would not have found my faith. And it takes years to find some of these things out. But as I look back, I'm like, you know what? That happened. That's in the past. God doesn't care about the past. He cares about the present, and he cares about your heart, and he cares about you. And I'm just so stinking excited to be able to share my life and his love with anybody and everybody. So I'm starting school. I'm working on becoming a youth pastor and going from there. So I'm excited to see where this takes us. Like I said, we're going to have many stories coming from here on out. Hopefully we'll see who we can find, and old and young, and it doesn't matter. The point is, we're going to see how God works through each one of our lives. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.